Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dishing on the movies. We're doing another review of a Star Wars movie that I had never seen before.
I didn't either.
And it's called Rogue One. And it had to be made early on. Well, not totally early on, but not as late as the one we just watched.
What?
Yeah, I mean,
Safi, why would I choose to watch?
I don't know. It just seemed
Why would
like I guess they must have. Did they CGI Carrie Princess Leia in there, because she sure looked awfully
Yes,
good.
Safi, I told you that one of the people at the convention was used, and they put Carrie's face over her. I told you that hours ago. You must have not listened.
I forgot.
Paid attention.
I was going to say, I was like, oh my God, but it was very brief. It was a cameo, if you want to call that.
Safi, this movie's from 2016.
Okay.
Okay,
anyway, go ahead, Marco.
Oh my God.
Neither one of us had seen the movie before.
We already said that.
And that's it.
Okay.
I don't know what to say. I didn't think it was very novel.
Well, anyways, let me start so that I can get the review on track, as usual.
Oh,
you know, you can't even bother to look up the movie anymore. Well, no, that's not true at all. That's a complete lie. So anyways, it's really funny because there's two things about this movie. Number one, it would have been perfect for a commentary because there's so many dopey things that happen throughout. Like, it's the perfect commentary movie. It's such a better commentary movie than The Force Awakens was. The Force Awakens was terrible to do as a commentary. And then also what was really funny was that this movie kept on stopping and buffering and pausing over and over and over again for me. But then all of a sudden, when the movie got good in the last 40 minutes, the movie stopped pausing and disrupting. So it was really hilarious. It was so weird. And but at least I got to enjoy the best part of the movie. So
you're saying you think this movie's like a half and half movie?
Well,
half crap and half good.
It's 2/3 crap and 1/3 good.
Okay.
Because I think the first 2/3 of this movie is terrible. It's almost actually worse than The Force Awakens. But then the last third is so good that it's like it's amazing, and it completely makes up for the first 2/3, I guess, because there was a lot of controversy with this movie before it came out. It was supposed to be an R-rated war movie type thing, and Darth Vader was supposed to be in the whole thing, killing everyone and everywhere, just being a complete basically like a slasher villain or something, and Disney was like, no, we want families to be able to see this movie. It has to be PG-13, and Darth Vader can only be in it for 1 minute, approximately.
In that 1 minute.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he only had 2 cameos.
That was
the first one.
3.
Was
3.
2. The first one of the things he just tried to. He does this all the time. He thinks that he strangles the guy that he gets mad at, but then he doesn't really strangle him because he recovers, but he clutches his throat. And then the other one, he came in there and he was killing people right and left. In fact, you could have done a count. If you said he was only on for a minute, he sure did a lot of killing in 1 minute.
That was the best part of the whole movie. And that felt like, see, this is what the director wanted this entire movie to be. And Disney is so stupid that they were like, no, it has to be a family movie. So we have to have 2/3 of what is essentially like this stupid, dumb cliche after cliche after cliche family movie It was so boring. I was starting to fall asleep.
I did fall asleep once.
Oh.
I had to go back a little bit. Well, I was tired because I was kept up late last night at 2:30 in the morning.
Well, but this is what happens. Like, this is why I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, is because with a lot of them, I fall asleep.
Well, I had to go back and where I left off and just watch it again to make sure I didn't,
I paused it. I got up. I walked around. I said, ugh, I'm going to have to sit through this movie as Safi's doing some irritating shit in the background of this video. And so, I guess we should get started. I mean, I would say a lot of people, even if they don't like the shitty Disney Star Wars, they seem to like this movie. Or they seem to like it better than all those other things. And I can kind of see where they're coming from, because the last third of the movie is really good.
Yeah.
And it feels like, yeah, if this was the whole movie, and if it was rated R, and Darth Vader was in the whole thing, this would easily be like one of the best Star Wars movies ever made, or the best Star Wars movie ever made. But when we go back and watch the originals and prequels, we'll see how this measures up. Because what happened was they reshot like 40% of the movie or something, and so like they completely changed the movie over what the director wanted to do, and they fucked with his vision, and that's why the first 2/3 of this movie is complete trash.
I'm surprised that you could get the part in at the end.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
The only good part of the movie. Well, the whole last 40 minutes, but that part in particular.
It doesn't make sense. They're battling. You have a ground force of like rebels, insurgents, which wasn't very many, doing a sneak attack and having a lot of bombs. But I mean, there had to be some killing. I mean, there's just no way they're doing a battle.
Yeah.
And there's no way that nobody could die. I mean, that would be so unrealistic. The movie would just be shot. I mean, it would just be no good at all. And just throw it in the trash.
Well, I would say the first 2/3 you should throw in the trash because it was that bad. Like,
well, I just kept wondering. I'm like, in fact, right away, I'm like, what's the point of this movie? Well, because it wasn't clear to me, but maybe I don't know, I couldn't follow it. This girl's father, of course, they told her to go hide, and they come and get this father to build this weapon, which just seems like it's just repeating another Star Wars movie.
Or just another any movie. Like, this seems like a plot of like any generic movie of like the bad guy had the good redeemed good guy or bad guy or something.
And he didn't go with them.
Build a weapon. And then also at the beginning, like, there's some this movie starts off and it's almost like a parody. Like, it almost felt like Screwballs. Or no, not Screwballs. What was the
Space Jam?
Spaceballs.
Spaceballs.
It felt like Spaceballs. Like, the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, like, right off the bat, the mom hands the little girl, a necklace.
What was the necklace?
It's a necklace with crystals that are for lightsabers, and she says, "Trust the Force." And it just felt like the stupidest thing. And then, like, they have that cliche of, like, where the kid is forced to run away from the parents, and then the kid has to witness one of their parents getting killed or something. Like, it's so cliche. It was just so bad. And then, also...
She shows up years later, but she says... And I think Forrest Whitaker, I think that was him.
Yeah, Forrest Whitaker saves her, and then there's just like the last movie, there's this big chunk of movie that we don't even get to see, where it's like...
She says she met up with them, they found him, and she said, "Well, you left me when I was 13, and you never came back. So how was she left alone? How did she take care of herself? And where did he go?" And that was just, and she just shows up.
Maybe she drank a lot of Tang. Tang! It's what the astronauts took to the moon.
So anyway, you have these. So I was beginning to think, like, what's the purpose of this movie? And
Yeah.
what are all these chunks that aren't even in it that would make it smoother and not like going in a road that had potholes?
Well,
No.
it's there was another ridiculous situation because there was all these situations where these supposed serious things happened, but they were so goofy that you couldn't take them seriously. And one of those was that another guy, Andor, he was like a boring character. He was like kind of like a weird, small, quiet character that nobody really cares about. And he's with this guy who's like his friend, and then he gives up his friend or something, and his friend is like, "Oh, great, thanks!" And then he gets shot and killed. It's just really weird. And it's like, is this intentionally comedic, or is it so bad that it is comedic? Because it's like, I don't know what they were thinking. Safi, did you remember that part?
Yeah, but it kind of just went like by me because I'm still thinking, like, what's the purpose of this movie? What's the story?
The purpose is that apparently, and now I don't remember this, but in the scroll for the first Star Wars movie, it says something like a group of rebels stole the plans to the Death Star. And so this is the prequel to the first one, and it's just to explain how that happened. And I feel like...
See, I didn't have that in my version. They didn't show all that.
What?
They didn't show that scrolling thing in my version. In fact, it said at the beginning, before all that started, that they had edited it to fit the format that I was watching it in. So they did not have that usual thing where it scrolls what it's
no,
like
Safi,
a story.
This movie doesn't have a scroll. I'm talking about the original movie.
Oh, okay.
Were you paying attention when I was talking,
Yeah,
Safi?
well, you said something about scrolling
Yeah.
in the...
I said the original movie.
Explain
I
how
said
they
the
got...
original movie, not this one.
Oh, okay.
I clearly indicated that.
Okay.
Seems like you're mimicking a certain someone
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
in government. Okay, so next up, there's also, and I don't know, like, this movie's really boring.
Well, there's just nothing much is happening in the first couple of parts.
There's this weird part. Forrest Whitaker is like the worst part of the movie because he's just there for like 2 seconds, and he's just complete trash. Yeah, and he's living in like a cave or something, like Osama bin Laden, and
he was living in a house. They thought he was living in a cave. He was actually in a house in the middle of a neighborhood in plain sight.
And fucking Forrest Whitaker, his planet gets blown up or something, and it's so hilarious. This is another cliche where there's like needless self-sacrifice, like unnecessary sacrifice. You know, it's basically like, hey, I'm showing off, I'm sacrificing myself because I'm better than you, and I'm gonna be a martyr or something. And so he's like, I'm done running, and then he just lets himself get destroyed, even though he could have easily escaped with them and run away and helped them. That was really weird. It was so, like, stupid. It was like, wow. Disney...
And he wasn't fighting off anybody.
No.
The place crumbled around him, and he fell into the
He was fighting...
abyss.
He was fighting himself, basically.
Yeah. And then this girl just shows up out of nowhere.
And she's really not a character at all, except for she has a dad that she likes. That's her character. She's like, hey, I'm generic main protagonist character, and I am rebellious.
Yeah, and I thought she was awfully young. Because and they don't... they don't really show her getting together with anybody, but I thought the person that they were kind of showing her they may get together, he was a lot older than her. And I thought, that's weird. And I just didn't even know why they did that.
Well, I'll give the movie a little bit of credit, even though it's horrible, except for the last part. There was a variety of planets, and it felt more epic in scale than The Force Awakens did, in my opinion. The Force Awakens felt very contained.
Yeah.
And it did not feel epic at all. This movie actually felt epic in scale. Would you agree, Safi?
Yeah, but it's funny because I guess when it came out, I just don't remember that at all.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
We watched movie fights and everything.
I don't remember when this movie came out to the theaters. It wasn't like those first three. And you just didn't, I don't remember the big interest in it.
Well, what I remember is that, the guy who went to my 18th birthday party, he was a big fan of the movie.
Oh.
And he had a shirt for the movie, and he said to watch it. And then, also, another thing is, a video game came out around the same time that this movie came out called Star Wars Battlefront. And it's so funny because at a certain point when the movie gets good, it feels like that video game. And it almost feels like a video game. Yeah, like a video game cutscene. And it just reminded me of like playing that game, which I played a lot. And it made me want to play the game again because the game is fun and the movie isn't.
Well, I didn't play any game, but it did remind me of a game.
Yeah.
Not the first half.
And also
the rest of it.
The good part. But also
the battling.
There was this, there's all these commercials that are always on YouTube and online. And sometimes you have commercials that air so many times that they're so annoying that you remember them forever. And it just does the opposite effect of making you want to get the product versus not wanting you to. And there was this one commercial, and I don't know if anyone else remembers. Safi doesn't, because she's...
No, I don't remember any commercial.
She doesn't want to remember anything.
No, it's just why? Why?
She's like
it's not important.
She's like a...
It's unimportant.
She's like those people who, like, they can't remember that time where they got... they got tortured by Satanists or something. Like,
oh my God!
She
what
puts
are
a.
You talking about?
She tries to blank it out.
Stories. Why don't you just continue with
there was this advertisement where there's these like fuckers in a shopping line at the store, and I don't know, like there's some stupid thing that happens, and there's this big fat guy, and he says the Death Star, and it's like. That commercial played like over and over again when this movie came out, and it's like Disney seriously has like a fixation on the Death Star. Like I'm pretty sure like nobody cared about the Death Star after 1977 when it got destroyed. Cuz like it got destroyed. Why the fuck do you care so much about something that got destroyed? Like it was trash. It had a huge weakness. It was such a shitty weapon that it was built with a weakness inside it on purpose, and you're fetishizing it still like thousands of years later and making a whole movie about it. Like, what a fucking bunch of morons at Disney. Like, that's so fucking pathetic. Like, it's stupid. Right, Safi?
Yeah, I just don't know what they would have done with the first half. How they would have, would have been changed.
Is that what you think about when you think of Star Wars?
No,
do you think about the Death Star?
No, I don't.
That got destroyed?
Well, Marco, you were telling me that people didn't like one of the earlier ones because they had Ewoks and they thought they were childish.
Yeah, people consider Return of the Jedi to be the worst out of the original trilogy because they say that since it has Ewoks in it, it's a childish movie.
And I just don't agree because, I kind of welcome... It came to a point where it was almost hard for me to distinguish between the good guys and the bad guys because their uniforms were, I don't know, they were kind of like doled out or similar, and I'm like, who's who and how did they get there? Like at the end when they were fighting Darth Vader.
It wasn't hard for me because in the video game you know all the different enemy types, and so I didn't have that problem, but I played the game.
Pilots, they have those orange things on, orange jumpsuits, so
Yeah.
But these guys had kind of washed out clothes, and I'm like, who's that? And
who's that?
And then and I guess it's the rebels, but how did they get there all of a sudden? Because the ones we initially see, like the tactical team that's on the ground and it's really small, that includes the girl and
the girl. What's her name?
Is.
Oh no! Oh, well, you better give this movie some criticism then, because you spent a lot of time criticizing that with the last one, where it took half of the movie. Her name is Jay, or
oh, you don't even know it yourself.
Jay.
I don't know.
Her dad was Galen. There's this like big thing of where people would either say Galen or Jalen, and then I think, or no, is she Jin? Yeah, she's Jin Urso. And then her stupid boyfriend is Cassian Andor. And then there's Pilot Guy.
Yeah, the pilot.
There's the robot guy, who I don't know. There's the fat guy with the long hair that was really cool. But yeah, so but like the whole first like 2/3 of the movie is basically just a bunch of boring nonsense of like these stupid people who you don't know who they are or care about who they are unless you're like a really big nerd who like knows the lore. There's just these people going to a planet to get information, to go to another place to get information about a person or information. It's like a big search for information. Like, this isn't what Star Wars is supposed to be. Star Wars isn't like a search for information.
Well, she didn't know if her dad was really alive. They were accusing him of building this weapon, and she was like, she didn't believe it. And then, in the beginning, when they showed her when she was a little girl, and when they got separated because they were taking him away to build the weapon, I guess, and his wife got killed. What was I going to say? It didn't look like Mads Mikkelsen, but later on, years later, when she's an adult and she finally sees him, and it's Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah.
Hannibal.
Well,
Mads Mikkelsen.
I will say that her character is a much better female character than Mary Sue. Like, all the characters actually are better than the characters in The Force Awakens. The only two characters that I didn't like were Forrest Whitaker, who was just a plain, boring cardboard character, and then I did not like the villain.
Oh, the guy in the white?
He was boring as hell.
Or a white cape?
He was a terrible, generic villain.
Actually, he looked like the guy that was at Marco's convention without the cape. That guy didn't have a cape.
What?
But he had a white uniform.
That guy didn't look anything like him.
Like the uniform. And but this guy had a cape over it. And he ran around. He had whitish hair.
Yeah, it's like Darth Vader had a black cape. This bad guy has a white cape.
And he's wearing all kind of like white.
Which is basically like, that's because nowadays there's this SJW thing and by the way, this movie is 1 out of 10 on the scale of being not woke to woke. Because of this color thing, because there's this agenda nowadays where there's this criticism over, in the olden days, all the villains used to wear black, and so
well, that was like
and the heroes would wear white, and so it's like, oh, is that because of race and because black is bad and white is good? And so nowadays, they're deliberately trying to subvert that by having characters like with wearing white.
Well, this is,
Which is stupid and dumb.
This is science fiction. So, I know what you're talking about. That's the day back in the day with those westerns and cowboys.
Which I think is kind of an irrelevant problem. I mean, it's not even a real problem. Like,
No,
I never
it's
even
not.
noticed it before.
No, well, you've heard about this for years. I mean, they talked about this kind of thing. It comes up for years.
But he was a terrible character anyway. This actor, he was also the villain in Ready Player One, which Safi watched but probably doesn't remember.
Not very much.
But
he was pretty good, though.
He played like the same character. Basically, except just a little bit better in that movie. So, like, I hated the villain. He was so boring and bland. And I thought that's really unfortunate because when Vader shows up, he completely steals the show.
Yeah, he's very omnipotent.
You're thinking to yourself, like, I would have just liked to have seen him the whole movie. I don't want to see this stupid, boring white cape guy who has, like, I don't even know what he is. Like, he's just a stupid idiot. And then it's hilarious because he's such a trash villain.
And I don't know what the hierarchy is because they have Peter Cushing
Yeah.
in it.
He's above him.
And he's above him.
And so at the end of the movie, the white cape guy gets killed by Peter Cushing and his own weapon, the Death Star. And I thought that's hilarious. Like, he's such a trash Star Wars villain that he got killed by, like, his own people. Like, that is definitely the weakest Star Wars villain I've ever seen besides Kylo Ren. And Snoke, probably. The Voldemort.
No.
But, let's see. And also, CGI Peter Cushing was terrible.
That was CGI.
Safi, what the fuck did you think?
I didn't know. I thought.
Oh!
Really, you better stop it. Stop with the bullshit.
Safi, what are you smoking, Safi? What are you smoking? What are you inhaling?
Why do they need to have it? That's what I mean.
I know. Why did they need him?
I know. Why? I don't get the that's what I mean. I don't get the hierarchy.
For nostalgia.
Oh.
Remember Peter Cushing?
He sure had a lot. He had a lot of, for being CGI or whatever. He sure had a lot of lines.
Peter Cushing was in the original movie, and he's in this movie too.
He had more lines than the villain that who you're talking about.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't like that at all. I felt like it might as well be a video game if you're having, like, this complete CGI character,
Weird.
Like, and then, let's see.
Well, and they showed C-3PO and R2-D2 for a very brief cameo.
Yeah, that was a nostalgia thing.
Okay, that was it. Just one cameo. Plume.
And of course, I bet Safi doesn't recognize her, but I don't even know who this character is or why people care about her. But that woman with the robe and the short hair,
the black hair,
is Mon Mothma, and she's some sort of like an iconic character. And it's like, who the fuck is that?
I don't know who it is.
It sounds like some kind of a hippie like yoga instructor or something, like Mon Mothma. It sounds like a retarded space alien.
Maybe she was in that one with Yoda.
No, she was in the originals, but, like, I don't know who, like, or I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, I don't recognize her.
This movie was made for, like, nerds who wanted. It was, like, mistakenly made for nerds to give them, like, cheap nostalgia. Just like Force Awakens was, like, nostalgia for A New Hope. And, another thing is, speaking of the word hope, the word hope was said constantly in this movie. Constantly. A rebellion is built on hope. We don't have any hope. Where's the hope? And then Princess Leia's one line in the movie, hope. They were like, what's this, Princess Leia? She says, hope. Hope, 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 hope. It's like, what the fuck? Why do they keep on saying hope in this movie? Like, seriously? Because the first one's called A New Hope? It wasn't even called A New Hope at first. Disney's that fucking retarded. It was called Episode 1. Or it was just called Star Wars. It wasn't called A New Hope until years and years later.
Well, I think I thought the title was a good title.
What?
Rogue One.
Why are you acting like I was saying it wasn't?
I don't know. But anyway. I don't know.
Did you even listen to what I said? I said, why did they keep on saying the word hope in this movie?
Marco.
It was like it was to reference A New Hope. And the original Star Wars movie was not called A New Hope at first. It was only called Star Wars.
Right.
Remember?
Yes.
So it's like Disney is that stupid that like they don't even realize that. Right?
I guess not. I don't know. I just wish it would have been interesting if they would have left it alone and let that guy do what he wanted to do and see if it would have been better.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have a good part, which was the 3/4 to the end. Maybe that's what you would call it. And then the rest of it was kind of like before that was cottage cheese. I mean, it just was nothing.
Cottage cheese.
Well, I mean, this girl just shows up out of nowhere. The way they described it, she was left to her own devices at age 13. And so she seems
just like the girl from Force Awakens.
I mean, she seems very self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And independent and not afraid and stands up for herself. There's just like, it's kind of like chocolate chips or something. There's just little pieces here and there of the story, but it's not very cohesive, and then it's just boring because they're just it's like they're giving you crumbs or something.
Yeah.
For the first 2/3.
And then at the end, it's like finally there's something that happens.
Yeah, it's like putting syrup on a pancake or something. You have a hot pancake, you put some butter on, it's hot, so the butter starts melting, and then you put on the syrup, and the syrup was the last third of the story, which was really good, and you're pouring it on. That's when they have all this action.
And Safi, remember in The Force Awakens when Han Solo said, I've got a bad feeling about this again?
Yeah, I think they said that.
Well, in this movie, they said it again.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's what Disney's like now. It's like, oh, we said that line again the last movie. Oh, let's say it again this movie, too. Because the fans will love it, because the fans are so stupid that they need to hear it over and over and over again.
I don't think that's right. The
it's
fans
true.
Aren't stupid. They're stupid for thinking.
No, they think that the fans are stupid.
Yeah, that's right, but that doesn't mean that they are.
I didn't say that.
No, I know. It's just I heard some of this stuff and I'm thinking like, well, it's just like they're kind of recycling ideas and kind of scattering them around. Like I said, breadcrumbs, and you don't really have a very cohesive. I mean, it's just not very much of. It's just a bunch of nothing. Really, it wasn't much of anything.
The final battle was really good. It was fun.
You see what they're doing.
It was awesome.
And the trouble they're having.
It was funny. It had stakes. It had suspense. It was dramatic.
They showed Darth Vader.
And then, of course, Darth Vader steals the show at the end. And it just felt like the perfect like last part to what was a terrible movie. Like the rest of it was terrible, but the last act, I thought the last part is so good that it almost like redeems the rest of the movie, because at least you could watch the last part of the movie again. I'd never watch The Force Awakens again.
No. that doesn't sound appealing at all.
So, well, Safi, what did you overall? What's the consensus of this movie for you? And then also, or not your summary, and then your food review.
Well, like I said, if you think of the movie in thirds, the first 2/3, this girl shows up. I hardly ever get her name. In fact, I guess I left it with I didn't know her name. And that was another thing. The difference between these newer movies, or I should just say these 2 new movies we've seen, is that in those first 3 movies, I mean, I don't have that great of a memory. I mean, I guess because sometimes I just feel like it's unimportant and just put it up on the shelf and forget about it. But the characters were very clearly defined and made, I thought, put together. And these newer movies, they're just kind of like hit and miss, and there's not much substance to them.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And then, I mean, this girl just shows up, and you hear her background a little. I mean, it's all.
Well, all the other characters just show up too. Like, there's that one blind guy who randomly shows up, and it's like, who's he?
Well, he was in the marketplace, and he was sitting there.
He's blind guy.
Yeah, and well, he's a Jedi.
Yeah.
I can tell you, he had Jedi powers, but he was like, because he's blind, he seems non-threatening, and they don't know. You know, they you have all these.
Oh, look, there's long-haired guy. Who's he? I don't know.
Yeah, he's and so I mean, they're like, what would you call? They're just not very clearly defined. I mean, you get to know them, but then you really don't.
Yeah.
Because you never hear their backstories or anything. You're just you're just seeing what they are now.
There's never a dinner moment where usually in these team-up movies, there's always a moment where the team sits around and has dinner together, and you get to know more about them, or their personalities even. And they didn't have a part like that in this movie for some reason.
No.
So that was kind of a flaw. But then again, the whole movie was a flaw. Because, I mean, honestly, this movie didn't even really need to exist at all. Like, seriously. It could have just been a mission in that video game that I played. In fact, they could have just made this a whole video game story. It didn't need to be a movie.
And really, another thing, too, I thought was interesting. There were so many more bad guys than there were good guys.
Yeah.
I was wondering if any of them were going to survive, which I never usually think that. And I thought, surely these people are going to survive. And it didn't even look like... I just thought he looked Portuguese, but I don't know what he is. But the guy she was with, but they're not boyfriend and girlfriend. He just...
Safi, you're not going to...
I don't know how to explain what he is. But
they are boyfriend and girlfriend at the end, though.
Oh, I guess they are.
That's heavily implied. But you know what's really funny, Safi?
What?
One of the things because we're going to watch all the shows, too.
Shows?
Yeah, the Star Wars shows. And he has his own show.
Oh, does he really?
And it's like, wow... Who the fuck wanted that?
He had a robot with him, and they were like friends.
Yeah.
And the robot actually gets killed, if you want to call it that, in the end. And because he was helping them, they had to achieve this task of aligning certain machinery so the Death Star could be, or the weapon that they had could be destroyed. And so they had to do all these things, and he was keeping those bad people at bay, and he finally got stopped.
I did like the robot character.
Yeah, he was pretty good. He was like...
He was the only character that I liked.
C-3PO is kind of...
Naive.
Well, he's kind of dim-witted, but he's not.
Goofy.
I don't know how to explain. Yeah, he's a little goofy, but I mean, so it's kind of better.
But he's really cool looking.
Yeah, I like them, but I mean, just think that this other robot, you've got to have the shows evolve. So in other words, you have to have if you're going to have robots, they have to improve them.
But
and
Safi,
make them different.
this
and
robot
better.
was made before C-3PO.
Yeah, I guess so. So C-3PO is the new and improved, but he had to make him. He had to be different. He couldn't be like C-3PO. It wouldn't have been the same at all. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and give my food review. I just don't know what else to say about it. I it's kind of weird. I don't like that either when you watch something
for 2
you're
hours.
investing your time.
Yeah.
And you're wondering the first half of it, pretty much, what's the purpose of this movie?
Yeah.
And because they, like I said, all these characters and all these little things that were like little breadcrumbs. It's like, Jack. What is it? The two kids that go out, Hansel and Gretel, and and they get left in the forest by their stepmom, and they go back because she had some bread with her, and the girl, and she uses the pieces and sees where they go and goes back to where they started from, and finally the birds eat the breadcrumbs the second or third time, and they can't follow them back because they're gone. But anyway, that's what these pieces were. They're like breadcrumbs, and when you have that, that's why it was boring, because it was just so little. And then you have it, they've got to find her father, and she saw some kind of a video of thing a holographic thing where he tells that he put this bad thing into the Death Star, so if they hit it right, it'll explode. So in other words, he was setting a trap for it to be destroyed, and so it goes on. It starts like building up like an actual story, and so you just have part of the movie, which was the last third, kind of build up and action, and they have a mission, and you have Darth Vader, and you have a fake Princess Leia. I don't know why they had to do that either. Show her, and then you have C-3PO and R2-D2. They only show them for like 2 seconds, and but it's very meaty. And so anyway, I just like, did I really need to see this movie?
No.
Did I really need it? And
No.
it's like, and I was kind of like, it just seems like the things that they did in it were kind of like I've seen it before. And anyway, so I was thinking about this pancakes I was talking about. So I guess the first half would be like a pancake. It doesn't have anything on it. You might have a piece of butter and it gets kind of cold, and then in the second half starts, and when it gets good, you have heated syrup, and you pour that over the pancake and the butter, and it melts the butter, and the syrup's really hot, and it's really sweet and good, and you eat that, and it turns out okay. But still, I mean, when you're watching a movie and you've paid money to go see it, which we didn't because this is years later.
Are you glad you didn't see it in theaters?
Well, I don't think I've been interested in seeing it. It didn't pique my interest when I heard about it. And I don't think I even heard that much about it. That's the thing.
They made a big mistake, too. After The Force Awakens was a big feminazi movie, they purposefully kind of baited people who got mad at that with this movie's trailer.
Mm.
Now, I don't know if this was actually in the movie or not. In fact, it would be funny to play the trailer for Safi, but in the trailer, they show footage of her, the main character, and they say she's a young, strong, independent, rebellious woman or something. Like, they do like this big thing of like emphasizing her and how she's strong and independent and rebellious. And everyone in the comments was like, uh-oh, here we go. Another Mary Sue character. Safi.
Well, wasn't the same. I mean,
But that was weird in the trailer. That was why I wasn't interested, and then it also just felt unnecessary. So my rating for the movie, you know, it's funny because multiple Star Wars movies I have fallen asleep watching. And this movie, it was really bad for the first 2/3. It was so bad that I was like, this is actually worse than The Force Awakens. But fortunately, the movie got pretty good in the last third when there was the big battle. It was very layered and complex, just like a video game. It felt like if you're in a video game, switching to different characters, everyone has to do their own purpose and their own thing. You get to do different fighting styles and fight with different weapons or something. Like, it just felt like a big video game level, and it felt like a great payoff. And so I would say that I just tried a new ice cream that I thought was going to be terrible.
you weren't very thrilled about it, that's for sure.
It's called Chocolate Malt Waffle Cone.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the ice cream turned out to be really, really good. It tasted like a chocolate malt. There's pieces of waffle cone in it that are covered in chocolate. It's really, really good. And so that's kind of like this movie. It's like, yeah, the first 2/3 isn't good at all, but that last third is really, really, really good and enjoyable and fun. And even though it's heavily flawed, it's so much better than Force Awakens, that last third of this movie.
It was a lot better. Just because of that last third, but like I said, what they did with the first half, I mean, I don't know what they could have done, but I'm not paid to reshape the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not paid to come up with ideas that would have made it better. It's not my job. I have enough trouble watching it and evaluating it on as a movie and how I enjoyed it, or if I enjoyed it and why I enjoyed it. So it's not my job, and I wish these people, they get millions of dollars. I've said this a million times, but this a long time ago, so it's, water under the bridge. But, I mean, you can learn from the mistakes of yesterday and apply them today when you have a budget like these people.
And they have not learned. You know what Disney did? They made the movies that they made. They were going to make all these other movies. Like, they were going to make a young Princess Leia movie.
Oh, really?
Where she's like a teenager or something.
Actually, that might have been good.
Oh, God, Safi.
Combined it with some other things, maybe.
But then they just gave up. They're just like, oh, never mind. And they just have made all these terrible shows.
Well, because I think they were thinking about that for the wrong reasons. Satisfying some kind of I don't know what you want to call it, agenda.
Well, actually, apparently, we haven't watched it yet, but the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, a lot of people said that it essentially turns into a Princess Leia show. The show becomes all about her and all about this female villain, and it's a big agenda shit show.
Because when those characters appeared in the first movies, they just showed up.
Yeah.
There was nothing before.
And I'll give this movie credit, too. There wasn't really any big agenda in it. Like, it wasn't like a feminazi movie at all, except for the thing with, making the villain wear white. So I think, like, even if you're someone who doesn't want to watch any Disney Star Wars and, that you recognize it's all agenda-based, Rogue One is not an agenda movie, surprisingly. Like, that was really surprising. I thought for sure it was going to be like, there was going to be some agenda somewhere, and there wasn't. Like, she was fighting alongside the men equally, and there wasn't any of this, like, how they treated Finn and how she acted towards Finn. she wasn't overpowering. She didn't have any powers that nobody else had for no reason.
No, she was just scrappy.
Yeah.
Because she'd been on her own for so long.
Everyone was scrappy, and everyone was the same. They were all on an equal playing field, on an equal level, as it should be. So, I liked it. Or I liked the last third.
Yeah, so anyway, I think that's it.
Thank God. I was so glad we didn't have to watch The Last Jedi today. Because that's the next one, and that is, like, the worst, apparently.
So anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers. And let us know what you think about these movies, because I'm sure many of you have already seen them when they came out, and maybe many times, although I never really heard about this movie very much. Maybe Marco did, but
I
sure
did.
didn't. It's just when the first 3 movies came out, it was like a phenomenon. And I mean, it's just like, oh my God, these are so good and they're so unbelievable. And like I said, there were the crowds, there were long lines to see them. They were wrapped around the building. You couldn't get tickets. And the thing is, nowadays when you go to the movies, you order your tickets in advance and you pick out a seat. It's all arranged and ahead of time. But you could go there and the tickets could sell out, and you just don't have that anymore. It just doesn't. It's just not. Well, I guess it is if you do, even if you do it online ahead of time, it's. But you don't go all the way to the theater and you're standing in line and they sell out. It's not like that. But I mean, this was a big deal, and it's just. I just don't know what these people are thinking. They think they're really going to repeat. It was like the Beatles, or I mean, it's just so. It's like something that just, oh my God, just blew up, and it was magical and exciting and new, and it's just like, and I, Harry Potter was kind of like that, but it was a little bit different because it started from books, and.
Well, this was just an expansion of one line on the scroll of the first movie. Yeah. Apparently.
So I don't know if they think they're going to repeat that kind of success, because
I think so. That's what they thought. This is a
phenomenon. It just doesn't. These things, you can't plan them. They didn't have that planned out in the original. They didn't know how it was going to turn out.
No.
They might have thought, I think
it was an indie movie.
I think people might like this. It might be pretty good.
Yeah.
And then it just blew up, and because it was so different, and it was about space and aliens but a life. It's just, and then there was Star Trek. I mean, it's just the whole thing. It was something new and exciting. So, when they do these things, it's like they're grasping for straws, and they're just not thinking, and it boils down to the same old thing we've been talking about for every single review, is that it helps you have a good story, good characters, no matter how long or short it is, and that makes all the difference in the world. So anyway, that's enough. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.